I'm 68 years old, and I've spent the last 33 years as a one-man army protecting a Bigfoot family from poachers, collectors, and trophy hunters who'd pay six figures for proof these beings exist. I've sabotaged hunting parties, intercepted armed men, used every skill I learned as an elite hunter to prevent others from doing what I once would have done without hesitation. My name is Jack Sullivan. In the 1980s, I was one of the most successful trophy hunters in North America. Clients paid $50,000 for guided hunts with me because I guaranteed results, record book animals, perfect kills, trophies worth mounting. I had a room full of them: grizzly bears, mountain lions, bull elk with racks that would make grown men jealous, bighorn sheep. Every species you could legally hunt in the Rockies, I'd killed the best specimens. I was good at it. Cold, surgical, viewed the wilderness as a series of targets. Felt nothing when I pulled the trigger except satisfaction at another successful hunt. Then, in November 1991, everything changed. I was hunting elk in the Bitterroot Wilderness, had a massive bull in my crosshairs, perfect shot, 200 yards, steady breathing, finger on the trigger. Then something emerged from the tree line, 8 feet tall, covered in dark fur, moving with purpose and power that made the elk look like prey, and me feel like I was suddenly the amateur in the room. It killed the elk with one motion, snapped its neck, efficient, merciful. The kind of kill I'd spent years trying to perfect with bullets and couldn't match with my bare hands. I didn't pull the trigger. Couldn't. Was frozen watching this creature, this impossible being, demonstrate hunting mastery that made my rifles look like toys. It dragged the elk into the forest, disappeared, left me standing there understanding for the first time in my life. I wasn't the apex predator in these mountains. Something else was. Something I didn't understand and couldn't classify and absolutely shouldn't exist according to everything I'd been taught. That was my first Bigfoot sighting. Wouldn't be my last. 2 years later, 1993, I found the family. Mother, father, juvenile with its leg pinned under a fallen cedar in a flash flood creek bed. Watched them work frantically to free their child. Watched the mother make soothing vocalizations while the father lifted the log. Watched family bonds that were unmistakably real, unmistakably similar to human family dynamics. And I understood. These weren't animals. These were people. Different species, but people, with families and emotions and intelligence. That's when I made the decision that defined the next 33 years. I would protect them from other hunters, from poachers, from anyone who'd see them as trophies instead of beings worthy of life. I sold my house, sold my trophies, every one of them, to collectors who didn't ask questions. Used the money to buy 2,000 acres of worthless mountain land in terrain so brutal most people wouldn't even try to access it. Then I disappeared. The legendary hunter Jack Sullivan just vanished. People assumed I'd died or gone crazy or lost my nerve. Truth was simpler. I'd found something worth protecting more than my reputation, worth more than trophy hunting fame, worth spending the rest of my life in isolation to defend. For 33 years I've lived on that land, alone, using every hunting skill I'd perfected, tracking, camouflage, psychological warfare, terrain manipulation, to protect a Bigfoot family from men exactly like I used to be. I've intercepted poachers, sabotaged expeditions, created false trails, used scare tactics that would terrify seasoned hunters, made my land feel haunted, dangerous. The kind of place people enter and leave quickly, telling stories about strange sounds and unsettling presences, because the family is real, and if the world discovered them, they'd be dead within months, killed for bounties, mounted as trophies, reduced from people to proof. I won't let that happen. Not while I'm alive, not while I have strength to fight. This is my confession, my warning. My final testimony before age takes what decades of mountain living haven't managed to kill. I was a hunter, now I'm a guardian, and I do it all again. Before we begin, comment below and let me know where you're watching this from today, and if you've ever had to protect something from people who destroy it for profit, you'll understand what comes next. This channel exists for people like you. Each episode brings a new character, a new encounter, a new perspective on what might be watching from the shadows. Help me reach 1,000 subscribers. Comment your story and share if this moved you. Now let me tell you about 1991, and the night everything changed. I became a hunter because it was the only thing I was good at. Dropped out of high school. No college. No prospects. Just a kid from rural Montana who could shoot straight and didn't mind cold weather. Started guiding at 19. By 25, I had a reputation. By 30, I was charging premium rates because clients knew, book Jack Sullivan, come home with a trophy. I was empty inside. Didn't recognize it then. Just thought that's how life was. You wake up, you track, you kill, you take payment, you repeat. My marriage ended in 1987. She said I was hollow, that I looked at her the same way I looked at animals, calculating, cold, emotionally absent. She wasn't wrong. No kids, no family beyond hunting clients who'd shake my hand, mount their kills, and forget my name until next season. The trophy room was supposed to fill that emptiness. Each kill was supposed to mean something, prove I was good at something, prove I mattered. But by 1990, I'd look at that room, dozens of mounts, hundreds of kills, and feel nothing. Just walls of dead things proving I could kill, not proving anything about who I was or why I existed. I was 35 years old, financially successful, professionally respected, completely hollow. The elk hunt that changed everything happened because I was chasing bigger trophies, record book specimens, the kind of kills that would cement my legacy. I'd been tracking this particular bull for 3 days. Massive rack, perfect symmetry, the kind of elk that would win competitions and make other hunters jealous. Had him in my sights, perfect conditions, no wind, steady rest, distance calculated, breathing controlled. Then the Bigfoot appeared. I'd heard stories, every hunter has, campfire tales about massive man-like creatures in the deep wilderness. I'd dismissed them as bullshit. Misidentified bears, overactive imaginations, drunk hunters seeing shadows. But this was real, unmistakable, 8 feet tall, broad shoulders, covered in dark brown fur, moving on 2 legs with purpose and intelligence. It approached the elk from downwind. The elk sensed danger but couldn't identify the source. Started to bolt. The Bigfoot moved with explosive speed, covered 30 feet in seconds, grabbed the elk by the neck and snapped it with one motion. Clean kill. Instant. More humane than any bullet I'd ever fired. Then it looked in my direction. Not directly at me, I was well camouflaged, but toward my position, like it knew something was there, was assessing whether I was a threat. I stayed frozen, barely breathing. The creature studied the area for maybe 30 seconds, then grabbed the elk, 700 pounds of dead weight, and dragged it into the forest like it weighed nothing. I sat there for an hour after it left, trying to process what I'd seen, trying to reconcile decades of wilderness experience with the impossible thing I'd just witnessed. That night I didn't sleep, kept thinking about the efficiency of that kill, the intelligence in the way it had assessed its surroundings, the power it had demonstrated. For the first time in my life I felt like prey, like something in these mountains was so far above me on the predator hierarchy that I'd been operating under false assumptions my entire career. I became obsessed, spent the next year researching Bigfoot, read every account, studied every piece of evidence, interviewed people who claimed sightings. Most of it was garbage, hoaxes, misidentifications, people wanting attention, but some of it, the accounts from experienced outdoorsmen, from people with nothing to gain from lying, those rang true, described exactly what I'd seen. I started hunting differently, not for trophies, for proof, for another sighting, for confirmation that what I'd witnessed was real. Clients noticed the change. "You seem distracted, Jack, not focused like usual." They were right. I was hunting for the wrong thing, bringing clients on elk hunts while scanning the forest for something else entirely. My business suffered, fewer bookings, word spreading that Jack Sullivan had lost his edge, that the legendary hunter wasn't delivering results anymore. I didn't care. The trophies didn't matter. The money didn't matter. I needed to see it again, needed to confirm I wasn't losing my mind. September 1993. I was scouting for bighorn sheep, solo trip, deep in the Cabinet Mountains. Terrain so brutal I wouldn't bring clients there. Found a creek bed, flash flood zone. Dangerous area I'd normally avoid. Heard vocalizations, not animal sounds I recognized. Something else. Distress calls maybe. I approached cautiously, and I found them. A juvenile Bigfoot, maybe 5 feet tall, young, with its leg pinned under a fallen cedar. The tree had come down in a recent storm. The juvenile was trapped, making distress sounds, and 2 adults were there, working frantically to free it. The mother was making soothing vocalizations, low, rhythmic sounds, the same tone human mothers use with frightened children, universal language of parental comfort. The father was trying to lift the log. Massive strength, but the angle was wrong. The tree was wedged against rocks. He'd lift, the juvenile would scream in pain, he'd have to set it down. They were desperate, terrified, trying everything to free their child. I should have left, should have documented from a distance, should have treated this like a research opportunity. Instead, I stepped into the clearing, made myself visible. Both adults saw me immediately, froze. The father positioned himself between me and his family, ready to fight, ready to die, protecting them if necessary. I raised my hands, showed I was unarmed, spoke softly. "I'm not here to hurt you, I'm here to help." They didn't understand the words, but maybe they understood the tone, the body language, the fact that I wasn't raising a weapon. I approached the log slowly, examined the situation, understood the problem, wrong leverage point, needed to lift from different angle. I positioned myself opposite the father, gestured for him to lift on his side while I lifted on mine. He understood. We lifted together. The log came free. The juvenile scrambled out. Leg was badly bruised but not broken. The mother immediately pulled it close, examined the injury, made comforting sounds. The father looked at me, made eye contact. Something passed between us in that moment. Acknowledgement, gratitude, recognition that I'd helped when I could have harmed. Then they left, moved quickly despite the juvenile's limp, disappeared into the forest. I stood there understanding. Everything I'd built my life on, the hunting, the trophies, the reputation, it was all bullshit, empty, meaningless. These beings, these people, they mattered. They had families. They loved their young. They deserved to exist without humans killing them for sport or profit. And I'd spent 15 years perfecting skills that men would use to hunt them, to kill them, to mount their heads as trophies. That's when I knew I had to change. Had to use everything I'd learned not to kill anymore but to protect. Had to become the barrier between this family and men like I used to be. That was the moment Jack Sullivan the hunter died, and Jack Sullivan the guardian was born. I spent 6 months after that encounter planning my transformation. Couldn't just quit hunting cold. Had clients booked, had contracts, had reputation to maintain while I figured out my exit strategy. But I was different. Took clients on hunts but felt sick pulling the trigger. Started making mistakes, spooking animals at critical moments, missing easy shots, suggesting we end hunts early. Word spread fast. Jack Sullivan had lost it. The legendary hunter couldn't deliver anymore. Bookings dried up. Perfect. By spring 1994 I was ready, had liquidated everything, sold the trophy mounts to collectors, got decent money for them which felt appropriate, using the proceeds from dead things to protect living things. Found the property, 2,000 acres in the Cabinet Mountains, remote, brutal terrain, classified as worthless for development or logging, perfect for my purposes. Bought it with cash, moved onto the land with minimal supplies, started building not a home but a defensive position, because I'd learned something crucial in those 6 months. There was a market for Bigfoot specimens, a black market, wealthy collectors willing to pay 6 figures for proof, for a hide, for a skull, for a body. And the hunters who'd pursue those bounties, they'd be men exactly like I used to be, elite trackers, cold, efficient, willing to kill rare things for money. I knew their methods because they were my methods, knew how they'd approach the hunt, knew what they'd look for, knew how they'd think, which meant I could stop them. Could use that knowledge defensively instead of offensively. I spent the first year establishing baseline, learning the family's patterns, understanding their territory, mapping their movements without interfering. There were 4 of them. The father I'd helped, the mother, the juvenile, now recovering well from the leg injury, and an older offspring, maybe teenage equivalent. They had a core territory of maybe 30 square miles, moved seasonally, used specific valleys for different purposes, foraging areas, sheltered sleeping sites, water access points. They communicated across distances using wood knocks, percussive sounds made by striking trees with branches or rocks, complex rhythms that conveyed information. I started learning to interpret the patterns, and I watched them, not like a researcher, like a student, learning how they lived, what they valued, how they moved through the world. They were careful, cautious, avoided human trails, moved mostly at dawn and dusk, stayed in terrain too difficult for casual hikers. They'd been doing this for generations, staying hidden, surviving in the gaps of human civilization, but they were vulnerable because they didn't understand the threat level had changed, didn't know that modern technology, thermal imaging, trail cameras, GPS tracking made hiding exponentially harder. By late 1994, I'd established a defensive perimeter, not a fence, too obvious. Instead, a network of false trails, deterrents, and psychological warfare designed to keep humans away. I created ghost trails, footprints leading away from the family's core territory into dangerous terrain. Scree fields, near vertical slopes, dead-end canyons. Anyone following would exhaust themselves on false leads. I set up scare markers, claw marks on trees positioned higher than bears could reach, stripped bark showing massive handprints, arranged rocks in patterns that looked intentional but unsettling, territorial markings that would make experienced hunters nervous, and I built low-frequency thumpers, devices that created subsonic sounds, vibrations you'd feel more than hear, the same sounds large predators make, designed to trigger primal fear responses in humans. My land became known as wrong. Hunters who wandered in would leave quickly, would report feeling watched, hearing strange sounds, seeing things at the edge of vision that didn't quite make sense. Perfect. That reputation protected better than any fence. Summer 1995. I encountered my first real threat. 3 men, well-equipped, moving through my property with purpose. I tracked them for 2 days, listened to their conversations. They weren't casual hikers. They were hunters, looking for something specific. The thermal hit was in this area, one said, examining a handheld device. Something large, bipedal. If the reports are accurate, we're looking at a $250,000 payday. They were hunting the family, had thermal equipment, professional gear, clear intent to kill and sell. I had to make a choice: confront them directly and reveal my presence, or use psychological warfare to drive them away. Direct confrontation was risky. If they saw me as a threat, they might return with more people, might bring authorities, might create complications that would ultimately endanger the family. Psychological warfare was safer. Make them think the area was too dangerous, too haunted, too wrong to continue. I chose psychological warfare, spent the next 3 days making their lives hell, mimicked the family's vocalizations from a distance, sounds that didn't match any known animal, used their own thermal equipment against them by creating heat signatures they couldn't explain, manipulated the forest to separate them, make them paranoid, break their unity. By day 4, they were terrified, making mistakes, jumping at shadows, arguing about whether to continue. On day 5, I left a message, arranged deer bones in a pattern around their camp while they slept, configured them to look deliberate, territorial, warning. They broke camp that morning, left quickly. I followed them to the property boundary, watched them go. One of them looked back, made eye contact with me across 200 yards, saw me standing at the tree line, understood. Someone was protecting this area, someone who knew they were there, someone willing to fight. They didn't come back. In fall 1995, the family had been aware of my presence for months, knew I lived on the edge of their territory, knew I wasn't a threat, but hadn't approached. Then the father made contact. I was chopping wood near my cabin, heard a wood knock. Single strike. Close. Maybe 100 yards. I stopped. Waited. Another knock. Closer. The father emerged from the trees, stayed at the forest edge, about 50 yards away, far enough to flee if needed, close enough to communicate. We looked at each other. He made no aggressive displays, no threatening sounds, just stood there, assessing. I set down the axe, raised my hand. The same gesture from when I'd helped free his child. He tilted his head, processing, then made a sound. Low frequency, not threatening, more like acknowledgement. Then he turned and walked back into the forest. That was our first real communication. Him showing himself deliberately, me demonstrating I wasn't a threat. Mutual recognition that we were sharing this space. Over the following months, it became routine. He'd appear at the forest edge while I worked, would watch for a few minutes, then leave. The mother started doing it too. Then the older offspring. Never the juvenile. They kept him protected. But the adults would show themselves, confirm I was still there, still keeping watch. We were building something. Not friendship exactly. More like alliance. Mutual understanding. They knew I was the barrier between their family and the human world. I knew they trusted me to maintain that barrier. It was the most profound relationship of my life, built on nothing but presence and purpose. No words needed, just recognition that we were protecting the same thing. If you're watching this and you've ever had to protect something from people who'd destroy it, stay with this story. My former hunting buddies said I'd gone crazy, that I'd thrown away a successful career for nothing. But if you're still here, you're proving them wrong. Hit subscribe. Help me show that some beings matter more than profit, that protection is worth any sacrifice. Now back to Montana. By 1996, I'd been living on the land for 2 years, had established rhythms, patterns, a life that was isolated but purposeful. I'd built a cabin into a hillside, camouflaged, used natural materials, designed to be invisible from aerial view, solar panels hidden under tree cover for minimal power, rainwater collection, garden for vegetables, hunted for meat, but only what I needed, total self-sufficiency, because every supply run to town was risk, was potential to be tracked, to lead people back to the property. The family and I had developed a communication system, wood knocks with specific patterns. A single knock from me meant warning, humans approaching. 3 knocks meant all clear, safe to move through this area. They'd respond, let me know they'd received the message, let me know their approximate location so I could adjust my defensive perimeter accordingly. One morning in June, I heard distress knocks, rapid, urgent. From the North Valley, I grabbed my pack and moved. Found the older offspring, the teenager, caught in an old trap. Leg hold trap. Probably from illegal trapping decades ago. Rusted but still functional. He was terrified, making pain vocalizations, trying to free himself, but the trap was well anchored. The parents arrived as I was examining the trap. The father positioned himself defensively, ready to attack if I hurt his child. I spoke calmly. "I'm going to help. I need to open the trap. It's going to hurt him briefly, but then he'll be free, okay?" They didn't understand words, but the father had seen me help before, had learned to trust me. I worked the trap mechanism, opened the jaws. The offspring pulled his leg free. It was badly bruised, bleeding, but not broken. The mother immediately began tending the wound, licking it clean, the same way animals do. Basic first aid through instinct and experience. I pulled out my med kit, showed the antiseptic, demonstrated on my own arm, then offered it to the mother. She watched, cautious, then allowed me to clean the wound properly, spray antiseptic, apply bandage. The offspring made grateful sounds, touched my hand briefly. The first direct contact any of them had initiated. The father made a sound, different from any I'd heard before, rhythmic, almost musical. Then he did something that changed everything. He gestured for me to follow. I followed the father deeper into their territory. First time I'd been invited rather than observing from a distance. He led me to a cave system I hadn't known existed. Natural limestone caves, multiple chambers, protected from weather, hidden. Inside, their home, sleeping areas lined with pine boughs and moss. Food storage, dried berries, smoked fish, cached nuts, tools, rocks shaped for specific purposes, sharpened sticks for digging. This wasn't just survival. This was civilization, culture, intentional living space maintained over what must have been generations. The mother was there with the juvenile, now about 7 years old in human equivalent. They watched me warily, but didn't flee. The father made sounds, seemed to be explaining to his family, "This human helped. This human is safe." Then he showed me something remarkable. A collection of human artifacts, old cans, rusted tools, a tarnished pocket watch, things they'd found over decades. He touched each item, made sounds, seemed to be telling me their history, where these came from, what they meant. They'd been observing humans for generations, collecting our cast-offs, trying to understand us the same way I was trying to understand them. The mother approached me, made questioning sounds, pointed to the artifacts, seemed to be asking, "What are these? What do they mean to your kind?" I picked up the pocket watch, opened it. The mechanism was rusted solid, but the engraving was still visible. "To James, 1887. This measured time," I said, knowing she couldn't understand words but trying anyway. "Humans use these to track hours and minutes, to organize our days." She made interested sounds, touched the watch carefully, then showed me something else. Arranged stones, patterns that seemed deliberate. Calendar maybe. Seasonal tracking through stone placement. They had their own timekeeping system, their own way of organizing existence, just different from ours. Over the following months, the relationship deepened. I was allowed into their spaces, permitted to observe their daily routines. I watched them process food. The father would fish, had a technique using sharpened sticks that was remarkably effective. The mother would forage, knew every edible plant in the territory. The offspring would help both, learning skills they'd need as adults. They had division of labor, specialized knowledge, teaching systems for transferring information to younger generations. I started contributing, would leave food near the cave entrance, supplies from my garden, smoked meat from my hunts. Not charity, exchange, building reciprocal relationship. They'd leave gifts in return, interesting rocks, carved wood, things they'd made or found that they thought I might value. We were building economy, trade system, foundation of any functional society. Winter 1996 was a harsh season. Deep snow, difficult foraging. I heard emergency knocks one January morning. Multiple rapid strikes, real crisis. Found the juvenile trapped in a snowbank. Had fallen through what looked like solid snow into a hidden ravine. Was buried. The family was digging frantically, but the snow kept collapsing. I had a shovel, metal tool they didn't have. I dug quickly, efficiently. Reached the juvenile within minutes. Pulled him out. He was hypothermic, shivering violently, lips blue. I did something that probably violated every rule of wildlife interaction. I wrapped him in my coat, held him against my chest, used my body heat to warm him. The parents watched, tense, ready to intervene if I hurt him, but recognizing I was helping. After 20 minutes, his shivering decreased. Color returned. He made weak sounds, but he was okay. I released him to his parents. The mother pulled him close, made soothing sounds, examined him thoroughly, The father approached me, closer than he'd ever come, maybe 5 feet away. He reached out his hand, palm forward, the same gesture I'd been using. I matched it. Our hands didn't touch. He was still too cautious for that, but they were inches apart, the closest thing to a handshake our species could manage. Then he made that musical sound again, the one from before. I understood. This was gratitude. This was acknowledgement. This was him saying, "You're family now, part of the clan." That night, sitting in my cabin, I understood what I'd become. Not a hunter anymore, not even just a guardian. I was part of a family, not human family, not even biological family, but family nonetheless. The father and I had become partners, both protecting the same beings, both committed to their survival, both willing to fight anyone who threatened them. I'd spent 15 years killing things, building a reputation through death, creating emptiness that no number of trophies could fill. Now I was spending my life protecting things, building relationships through care, creating meaning that filled every part of me that had been hollow. This was what I'd been missing. This was what the trophy room couldn't provide. This was purpose, not taking life, preserving it, not proving dominance, demonstrating devotion, not extracting value from the wilderness. Protecting what was already valuable. I'd become the man I should have been all along. Better late than never. Late 1990s brought escalation. Word was spreading in certain circles. There might be Bigfoot in the Cabinet Mountains. Thermal hits, unidentified vocalizations, credible sightings. The wrong people were paying attention. Wealthy collectors, professional poachers, people who viewed rare animals as investment opportunities. I intercepted the first serious threat in 1998. 4-man team. Ex-military by the way they moved. High-end equipment, night vision, thermal imaging, suppressed rifles. They weren't amateurs. These were professionals who'd hunted endangered species in Africa and Asia, who'd killed rhinos for horn and tigers for pelts, who viewed laws as inconveniences and protected species as lucrative targets. I tracked them for a week, learned their patterns, identified their weaknesses, understood their psychology. Then I went to war, used every psychological trick I'd developed, created heat signatures using carefully placed heat sources, made their thermal equipment see creatures that weren't there, led them in circles, separated them through careful terrain manipulation, set up evidence that would terrify rather than excite, massive claw marks raked into trees 8 feet high, ground disturbances suggesting something huge had passed through, blood trails, deer blood, leading into impassable terrain, made them think they were hunting something that was hunting them back. By day 8 they were exhausted, paranoid, making mistakes. On day 9, I made myself visible, just for a moment. Let the team leader see me through his scope, man-sized target. Not Bigfoot, not animal, human, watching them, armed, positioned like a sniper. The message was clear. You're not alone. You're being monitored. You're vulnerable. They left that afternoon. I followed them to the state boundary, watched them go, found their dropped equipment later. They'd shed weight to move faster, left behind thousands of dollars of gear in their rush to escape. Good. Let them tell stories about the haunted mountains. Let them spread fear about the area. Better than spreading evidence the family existed. Summer 1999. The oldest offspring, now fully mature adult, started patrolling with the father. They'd check the boundaries together. Morning and evening sweeps of the territory. One evening, the young adult encountered me doing my own patrol. We both stopped, assessed each other. He was massive now, 7.5 feet, broad, powerful, prime specimen, the kind of Bigfoot that would be worth a fortune to the right buyer. He made questioning sounds, not threatening, more like, "What are you doing here?" I responded with wood knock pattern. 3 strikes, the all-clear signal. He made affirmative sounds, then gestured for me to follow. We patrolled together, walking the property boundary, him checking for signs from his perspective, me checking from mine. At one point he found human footprints, recent, hikers who'd wandered onto the property. He made distressed sounds, showed me, clearly asking, "Threat?" I examined the tracks. Hikers, not hunters, just lost. They're already gone. Showed him the tracks led to the property boundary and continued off my land. He understood, made relieved sounds. We continued the patrol together, man and Bigfoot, both guardian same territory, both protecting same family. When we finished, he made that musical sound, gratitude, partnership, recognition that we were doing this together. It became routine. The young adult and I would patrol together weekly. Sometimes the father would join, sometimes just the two of us. We were a security team, coordinated, communicating through signs and sounds. Effective because we combined human knowledge of technology and threats with Bigfoot knowledge of terrain and wildlife patterns. The family started leaving me more elaborate gifts, Not just rocks and carved wood anymore, things that required time and effort to create, woven grass mats, dried fish prepared using techniques I didn't recognize, carved figures showing what looked like family groups, maybe their way of documenting their own history. I reciprocated, brought tools they could use, metal implements, dulled hunting knives repurposed as cutting tools, rope, tarps for weather protection, modern materials they couldn't make themselves but could benefit from. They'd examine each gift carefully, figure out how to use it, incorporate it into their lives. The father started bringing me to specific locations, showing me things, fresh bear tracks, warning me about dangerous areas, plant patches, sharing knowledge about edible species I didn't know, water sources, expanding my understanding of the territory. He was teaching me, the same way he taught his offspring, making me more effective as guardian by improving my knowledge of the land we were protecting. By 2001, we'd developed sophisticated communication, not language. They couldn't produce human speech sounds and I couldn't replicate their vocalizations perfectly, but shared understanding. I'd leave stone arrangements with specific meanings, rocks positioned in patterns that indicated, saw humans here, dangerous area, safe path available this direction. They'd respond with their own arrangements, wood patterns, broken branches indicating predator present, food source discovered, weather changing. We had a shared vocabulary built from materials, a written language of sorts using forest objects instead of marks on paper. The young adult learned to use my binoculars. I'd left them as a gift, curious if he'd understand their purpose. First time I saw him using them, he was scanning the valley, checking for threats the same way I did. He made excited sounds when he figured out the magnification, showed the father. They took turns looking through them, pointing at distant features, clearly discussing what they were seeing. They understood technology when it served a purpose, could learn to use tools when shown their function, intelligence expressed through adaptation rather than invention. Winter 2002 brought a crisis that tested everything we'd built. The mother got sick. I'm not sure with what, infection maybe, or disease, but she was fevered, weak, barely able to move. The family was terrified. The father stayed with her constantly. The offspring brought water, food, but she was declining. I had antibiotics, kept a medical kit for emergencies, human medications, but worth trying. I approached the cave carefully, made it clear I was offering help, not threat. The father saw the medical kit, made desperate sounds. He knew I'd helped before, was hoping I could help again. I showed him the pills, demonstrated taking medicine, pantomimed swallowing, pointed to my throat, showed the water bottle, tried to communicate. She needs to take these, they'll help. The father understood, took the pills, carefully fed them to the mother with water. She was too weak to resist. I left more pills, showed him the dosage, 2 pills, twice per day. Used stone counting to demonstrate timing, hoped he'd understand. I visited daily, brought electrolyte solutions, more medication, monitored her progress from a respectful distance. By day 5, her fever broke. By day 7, she was sitting up. By day 10, she was moving around the cave. The father approached me, put his hand on my shoulder. First deliberate touch he'd ever initiated. Weight of it was enormous. He could have crushed me if he'd wanted, but it was gentle, grateful. The gesture that transcends species. You saved my mate, you saved my family, I owe you everything. The mother recovered fully, and from that point on, when I entered their territory, she'd make welcoming sounds. The family's matriarch had accepted me completely. I'd become more than ally, more than guardian. I'd become family member who'd proven repeatedly that their well-being mattered more to me than anything else. 2003 brought new technology, trail cameras, cellular cameras that could transmit images remotely, GPS tracking equipment that could monitor vast areas, and people using that technology specifically to find Bigfoot. I started finding cameras on my property, hidden, positioned along game trails where the family moved. Some were obvious, amateurs who didn't know proper placement, but some were professional, expensive equipment, carefully concealed. I disabled every camera I found, destroyed them, left the broken equipment as warning. This property is monitored. Your cameras won't survive here. But I knew I wasn't catching all of them. The property was too large, the cameras too small. I couldn't possibly patrol every square foot, which meant images existed, somewhere. Maybe uploaded to servers before I found the cameras. Maybe being analyzed by people trying to determine if they were genuine. The family was being photographed, documented. Evidence was escaping my control. Summer 2004. A man showed up at my property boundary. Well-dressed, professional, handed me a business card. Dr. Marcus Webb, Cryptozoology Research Foundation. Mr. Sullivan, I'd like to talk to you about the unusual activity on your property. Not interested. We have thermal imaging data, photographic evidence, credible testimony from multiple sources, all pointing to this area. I'm prepared to offer significant compensation for access. No, Mr. Sullivan, I understand you value your privacy, but this is a matter of scientific importance. If what we suspect exists actually does exist, it would revolutionize our understanding. Not interested in revolutionizing anything. Leave my property. His expression hardened. We can go through legal channels, environmental surveys, court orders. We have resources. We will gain access with or without your cooperation. Try it. I'm sure the courts would love to hear about your trespassing cameras, the evidence you've been collecting illegally on private land, the harassment of a property owner trying to live peacefully. He left, but I knew he'd be back, with lawyers, with court orders, with pressure. I might not be able to resist legally. I had to warn the family, had to make them understand. We're running out of time. The world is getting smaller. Technology is making hiding harder. I went to the cave, used our communication system to convey danger increasing, need to be more careful, stay deeper in the territory, avoid the boundaries. The father understood, made distressed sounds. He'd lived his entire life watching humans encroach, watching territory shrink, watching hiding places disappear. For the first time, I saw something in his eyes that broke me. Resignation. Acceptance that eventually, no matter how hard we fought, they'd be discovered. That hiding was temporary solution to permanent problem. The young adult made angry sounds, gestured toward the boundary, clearly asking, why can't we fight? Why do we always hide? I couldn't explain. Couldn't make him understand that fighting would mean exposure, would mean death. That their only survival strategy was remaining unknown. That night, I sat outside the cave with the father, both of us keeping watch, both of us knowing we were fighting a losing battle. He made soft sounds, not the musical gratitude sound, something else, something that conveyed, thank you for trying, for fighting for us, for making this last as long as it has. I'm not giving up, I said. I'll keep fighting, whatever it takes. But we both knew the truth. Technology would eventually win. Satellites, drones, AI image analysis. The tools for finding hidden things were improving faster than the tools for staying hidden. Fall 2004. Dr. Webb returned. With lawyers, with environmental survey permits, with legal justification for accessing representative wilderness areas for climate study. It was bullshit, but it was legal bullshit. I couldn't stop them without revealing why I was stopping them. They came with equipment, survey teams, 6 people, professional operation. I tracked them constantly, stayed close enough to monitor, far enough to avoid confrontation, and I guided the family away, used our communication system to keep them moving ahead of the survey team, kept them in areas already surveyed, made sure the team never got close. But it was exhausting. Week-long operation that required constant vigilance, constant coordination with the family, constant stress. On day 6, I saw the young adult. He was angry, frustrated, making aggressive sounds. He wanted to confront the intruders, wanted to defend his territory actively instead of hiding. The father held him back, made calming sounds, but I could see the same frustration, the same anger at being pushed around in their own home. They were being hunted, and they knew it. And hiding was wearing on them psychologically the same way it was wearing on me. The survey team finally left, found nothing conclusive, declared the area consistent with expected wilderness patterns, and moved on. But the damage was done. The family was traumatized, nervous, jumping at sounds, avoiding areas they normally used because those areas felt violated. I'd failed them, hadn't prevented the intrusion, hadn't protected them from the stress and fear of being hunted in their own territory. The young adult was especially affected, started patrolling obsessively, would challenge me aggressively when I approached, made sounds that clearly meant, you said you'd protect us. Where were you? Why did you let them come here? The father intervened, made calming sounds to his son, then approached me, put his hand on my shoulder again, made sounds that conveyed, not your fault. You did what you could. We understand the situation. We know you're trying. But the look in his eyes said something else. This can't continue. Eventually, we'll be found. Eventually, your protection won't be enough. He was forgiving me for failing, but also preparing me for inevitable failure, teaching me that some things can't be prevented, only delayed. That night, I made a decision. I needed to do more, needed permanent legal protection, needed something that would survive me and continue protecting them after I was gone. I started working with lawyers, not Dr. Webb's kind, conservation lawyers, people who helped establish wilderness protections and conservation easements. Started the process of putting my land into permanent trust, creating legal structures that would prevent development, prevent access, prevent anyone from doing what Dr. Webb's team had done. It would take years, would cost most of my savings, but it was the only way to create protection that didn't depend on me being alive and able to fight. The family didn't understand legal structures, but they understood commitment, understood that I was doing something long-term, something that demonstrated I wasn't giving up. The father made approving sounds. The young adult's aggression decreased. The mother left an elaborate woven mat as gift, their way of saying, "We see your effort. We appreciate it. We trust you're doing your best." That's forgiveness, that's family. Not perfection, not preventing all threats, just consistent effort, just refusing to quit even when outcomes are uncertain. I'm sharing this now because the legal structures I created are public record, because the conservation easement exists and can be verified, because some truths need telling even when they're uncomfortable. Subscribe if you believe protection requires sacrifice, that some beings deserve permanent sanctuary, that fighting impossible battles is worth it, when what you're fighting for matters. By 2008, drones were becoming common, cheap, accessible to amateur enthusiasts. I started seeing them over the property. Not military surveillance, just hobbyists. People flying drones with cameras, capturing aerial footage of pristine wilderness. Innocent on the surface, deadly for the family if they were photographed from above. I learned to shoot them down, got good at it. Became a game. How quickly could I spot a drone, calculate its flight path, disable it with precision shot before it captured anything useful? Kept a collection of downed drones in my cabin, maybe 20 of them by 2010. Each one a threat neutralized, but it taught me the family needed to adapt, needed to understand aerial threats, needed to learn that hiding from humans required avoiding open areas even when no humans were visible on ground. I started training them. Used my own drone, purchased specifically for this purpose to demonstrate, showed them, this machine can see you from above. When you hear this sound, seek cover. Move under tree canopy, avoid clearings. The young adult learned quickly, would hear drone motors and immediately signal the family. They'd disperse, find cover, wait until threat passed. They were adapting, learning to survive in a world where hiding required understanding human technology and its capabilities. 2010 brought a different kind of threat, hunters. Not professionals hunting Bigfoot, just trophy hunters, illegal hunters, poachers looking for elk and bear on my protected land. Found them one morning. 3 men, camps set up in prime family territory, fresh elk kill, planning to spend several days hunting illegally on my property. Old me would have shot first, defended territory with violence, eliminated threats permanently. New me understood. Violence creates investigations. Bodies bring authorities. Authorities bring attention. Attention endangers the family. I confronted them without weapons, just walked into camp. "You're trespassing. Private property. Pack up and leave." They laughed. "Old man, this is public land. We checked the maps." "You checked wrong maps. This is private, posted. You're hunting illegally on posted private land. Leave now, or I call the sheriff." The leader stood, bigger than me, younger, aggressive. "What if we don't want to leave? What if we like this spot?" I looked at him without fear. Decades of facing real threats, grizzlies, armed poachers, the wilderness itself, had taught me not to be intimidated by posturing humans. "Then I document your illegal kill, your presence on posted property, and I press charges. You lose hunting licenses, pay fines, face legal consequences, or you pack up in the next hour and I forget I saw you. Your choice." They left, took their illegal kill, disappeared. No violence, no bodies, no investigation. Just old man with legal authority and willingness to use it. The father watched the whole thing from concealment, saw me handle threat without bloodshed, saw that sometimes words work better than force. Later he made approving sounds, touched my shoulder, his way of saying I understand. Not all threats require violence. Sometimes strength is choosing not to fight. In 2012 I was 55 years old, healthy enough but aware that I wouldn't live forever, aware that the family would outlive me, aware that my protection needed to continue after I was gone. The conservation easement was complete. The land was legally protected from development for 100 years. But that wasn't enough. I needed someone to continue after me, someone who'd understand what they were protecting, someone who'd fight the way I'd been fighting. But who? Who could I trust with this secret? Who would believe me? Who would dedicate their life to protecting beings they'd never met? I realized no one. There was no replacement for me. No person I could train or trust with this responsibility. The family would be alone after I died, dependent on legal structures, hoping that technology wouldn't advance fast enough to find them, hoping that human curiosity wouldn't overcome legal barriers. It was terrifying realization. But it taught me, you can't protect forever. You can only protect for your lifetime, and you have to make peace with that limitation. All I could do was make the protection as strong as possible while I lived, create legal barriers that would survive me, teach the family everything I could about avoiding detection. Hope it was enough. Legacy isn't controlling the future. Legacy is doing your best in the present and accepting that continuation isn't guaranteed. By 2015, I'd been living alone on the property for 21 years. No human contact beyond occasional interactions with lawyers and supply runs to town. No friends, no relationships, no community beyond the family I was protecting. It was the loneliest life imaginable, but it was necessary, because every human relationship was potential security breach. Every person who knew where I lived was potential threat to the family. I chose isolation because protection required it. Because the beings I was protecting mattered more than my need for human connection. But it took toll, affected me psychologically, made me more animal than human in some ways, more comfortable with the family than with my own species. When I did have to go to town supply runs every few months, I'd struggle to make small talk, would forget how to interact normally, would be seen as the weird hermit from the mountains. Didn't matter. My reputation among humans was irrelevant. What mattered was the family's safety. But it taught me, protection costs. Sometimes it costs everything. Your social life, your mental health, your connection to your own species. And you pay those costs willingly when what you're protecting matters more than what you're sacrificing. In 2016, the poacher team that nearly destroyed everything, 3 men, ex-military, professional hunters, men exactly like I used to be, elite trackers, cold, efficient, motivated by 6-figure bounty for Bigfoot specimen. They bypassed my outer defenses, knew to expect psychological warfare, came prepared with night vision, thermal imaging, sound dampeners. They were me, 20 years ago. All the skills I'd possessed, all the cold efficiency I'd perfected, but using those skills for exactly what I'd spent 2 decades preventing. I tracked them for 3 days. They were good, stayed dispersed, communicated through encrypted radio, moved through terrain deliberately, avoided patterns. On day 4, they got thermal hit on the young adult. He'd been careless, moved through clearing during twilight, was photographed on thermal camera. They had proof, had location, were closing in for the kill. I had to act, had to use every tactic I knew, had to become the hunter again to stop hunters. Spent the next 2 days making their lives hell, used the forest against them, created sounds that came from everywhere and nowhere, manipulated their equipment, interfered with radio signals, created false thermal signatures, made them doubt everything they were seeing, separated them through careful terrain manipulation, led one into Box Canyon, trapped another in dense undergrowth, isolated the leader. When I finally confronted him, he had his rifle aimed at shadow in the brush, thought it was the young adult, was about to fire. I hit him from behind, disarmed him with techniques I'd learned in my hunting years, had him on the ground, his own rifle pointed at his head in seconds. "Leave," I said. "Take your team, get off my property, never come back." He looked at me, saw his own skills reflected, understood he'd been beaten by someone who knew every trick he knew, someone who'd been there longer, knew the terrain better, was willing to fight harder. "Who the fuck are you? I'm the man who used to be you, and I'm telling you, leave while you still can." They left, abandoned their equipment, ran. But I understood, the greatest threats aren't amateurs, aren't curious tourists, are professionals, men with skills identical to mine, and stopping them requires being better than they are, requires being willing to use every ruthless tactic I'd learned, requires becoming monster to stop monsters. In 2018, the mother died. Natural causes. Old age probably. She was ancient by any measure. Had to be 60 years old minimum based on the father's accounts. The family mourned. 3-day vigil. Vocalizations that were unmistakably grief. Ritual burial in location they'd clearly used for generations. They invited me to witness, included me in their mourning. Let me see the most sacred moment of their culture, the return of a matriarch to the earth. I cried, standing there with these beings, mourning the loss of someone I'd known for nearly 25 years, someone who'd trusted me, who'd accepted me, who'd made me part of her family. The father stood beside me, made soft sounds. We grieved together, man and Bigfoot, both mourning the same loss, both understanding that love transcends species when recognition is mutual. After the burial, the father touched my face, the verification gesture he'd used 25 years ago. But this time it meant something different. Your family completely. No human Bigfoot distinction anymore, just family grieving together. That's when I understood. Love isn't about similarity. Love is about recognition, seeing another being as worthy of care, choosing to protect them, choosing to grieve when they're gone. I loved the mother, loved the father, loved the young adult who'd grown into full adulthood, loved them as much as I'd loved anyone human, maybe more, because this love was built on choice and action rather than obligation and proximity. They loved me too, in their way, as the guardian who'd given his life to protecting theirs, as the strange human who'd become part of their family, despite every biological boundary that should have prevented it. I'm 67 years old. The father is probably 70 plus. We're both old, both moving slower, both aware our time is limited. The young adult, now fully mature with offspring of his own, has taken over primary territory defense, patrols more, checks boundaries more frequently, learning to be the guardian his father was. But the father and I still patrol together sometimes, slower now, taking breaks we didn't need 20 years ago, both of us feeling the weight of age. One evening we sat on a ridge overlooking the territory, both tired from the day's patrol, both just existing together in companionable silence. He made soft sounds, gestured toward the valley, toward his family, made vocalizations that seemed to mean, this is what we protected, this is what mattered. 3 generations now, the young adult, his mate, 2 juveniles. The family was growing, thriving, surviving in the sanctuary we'd created. We did it, I said, kept them safe, gave them space to live. That's all we could do, and it was enough. The father made agreeing sounds, touched my shoulder, the gesture that meant brother, partner, family. We'd spent 33 years fighting together, protecting together, building something that mattered more than either of us individually, and it had worked. Against all odds, against technology and greed and human curiosity. We'd kept one family safe. The conservation easement was solid, would last a century, but I was worried about enforcement, about who would check boundaries after I was gone, who would intercept threats, who would fight the way I'd been fighting. I updated my will, left everything to a conservation trust, established funding for private security to patrol the boundaries, created systems that would continue the protection after my death. It wasn't perfect. Nothing could replace active guardian who understood what was being protected, but it was something, legal and financial structures that would create barriers even without human understanding. The father seemed to understand something was changing, that I was preparing for end. He'd see me working on documents, talking to lawyers on satellite phone, arranging things, made questioning sounds, clearly asking, you leaving? Going away? Dying eventually, I said. Not soon, but eventually. I'm making sure protection continues after I'm gone. He understood mortality, had buried his mate, knew death was inevitable, made sad sounds but also accepting sounds. This is how things are. We all end. What matters is what we protect while we're here. The final years brought different relationship with the family. Less about defense, more about just being together, existing, appreciating time we had left. The father started spending more time near my cabin, would sit within sight, not doing anything, just being present, keeping watch over me the way I'd kept watch over his family. The young adult and his mate would bring the juveniles to visit, let them see the strange human who protected them, teaching them, this one is safe, this one is family, remember him, honor what he did for us. The juveniles were curious, would approach closer than adults, touch my hand, make questioning sounds, learning that humans weren't all threats, that sometimes, rarely, humans could be trusted. I'd give them gifts, carved wood, interesting rocks, same things their family had given me decades ago, building relationship with new generation, teaching them reciprocity and trust. January 2025, harsh winter, deep snow. I was struggling with cold, age making temperature regulation difficult. The father noticed, appeared at my cabin with the young adult. They'd brought fur, caribou hide, woven grass insulation, materials for better weatherproofing, spent the day helping me reinforce the cabin. The young adult did heavy lifting, the father directed, teaching his son, teaching me, making sure I'd survive the winter. It was role reversal. For 30 years I'd protected them. Now they were protecting me, making sure the old human who'd devoted his life to them would survive long enough to see spring. When they finished, the father touched my face, made sounds that meant, we take care of family. Your family. We protect you now. I broke down crying, old man weeping while 2 Bigfoot stood there understanding, offering comfort through presence, through recognition that care flows both ways, that family means mutual protection, regardless of who's strong and who's vulnerable in any given moment. That night I understood. I'd succeeded. not just in protecting them, in building real family, real relationship, real love that transcended species and operated on the fundamental level of beings caring for beings. This was the culmination, the end point, the thing I'd been working toward without realizing it, not just keeping them alive, making them family, and being family in return. Right now, I'm dying. Heart failure, decades of mountain living, stress, age. My body is giving out. The father is dying too, can barely walk, moves with great difficulty, ancient beyond ancient. We both know this is the end, our final season together. One morning in early March, he appeared at the cabin, moving slowly, painfully, but determined, made sounds, gestured for me to follow. I grabbed my walking stick, followed him into the forest. Slow progress, both of us stopping frequently to rest, both of us pushing through pain because this mattered. He led me to the cave, the family's home, their sacred space. Inside, the young adult and his family, waiting. This was ceremony, final gathering. The father made long vocalizations, speaking to his family. I didn't understand the words, but I understood the meaning. This human protected us for 33 years, sacrificed everything, became family. Honor him, remember him, continue what we built together. The young adult approached, gave me something wrapped in hide, inside a carving, elaborate, detailed, showing two figures, human and Bigfoot, standing together, guardian and protected, father and father, brothers. Thank you, I whispered, for trusting me, for making me part of your family, for giving my life meaning when I'd lost all meaning. The father approached, put both hands on my shoulders, looked directly into my eyes, made sounds, final sounds, that musical vocalization he'd first made 30 years ago, but deeper now, more profound, conveying everything we'd been to each other, everything we'd accomplished, everything that mattered. Then he pressed his forehead against mine, held it there. The gesture that meant your family, forever, beyond death. You'll live in our memory and our teaching and our protection of what you helped us build. I pressed back, held the contact. Two old beings, different species, same purpose, same love. They walked me back to the cabin, the whole family, slow procession, supporting each other, supporting me. At the cabin boundary, they stopped. The juveniles made sad sounds, didn't want to leave. The young adult gestured, I'll check on you, daily. Make sure you're okay. Protect them, I said. Take over what your father and I started. Be the guardian now. Keep them safe, whatever it takes. He made affirming sounds, touched my shoulder. His father's gesture, passed forward, continuing the legacy. The father made final sounds, raised his hand. The gesture we'd been using for 3 decades. Goodbye. Until we meet again. Gratitude. I raised my hand, held it until they disappeared into the forest. The father died 2 weeks later. The young adult left the message in stone arrangements. I understood. I hiked to the burial site, witnessed the ceremony, 3-day vigil, same as they'd done for the mother. They buried him in the place where generations had been buried, family cemetery, sacred ground, and they invited me to add stone to the grave, to participate in the ritual, to say goodbye to my brother, my partner, my family. I placed my stone carefully, whispered, thank you for everything, for teaching me what matters, for making me family, for giving me purpose. Rest well, brother, your family is safe, I promise. The young adult stood beside me, made soft sounds. We grieved together, continuing what our fathers had started, honoring what they'd built. This is the goodbye, the great partnership ending, but the protection continuing, the family surviving, the sanctuary enduring. That's victory. Not preventing death, that's impossible. Preventing extinction, giving them space to continue, to grow, to pass their culture forward. The father and I did that for 33 years, and now the young adult would continue it, and his offspring would continue after him. The family would survive, hidden, protected, free. That's all we ever wanted. And somehow, impossibly, we achieved it. I'm 68 years old, writing this in March 2025, dying in the cabin I've occupied for 32 years. The conservation easement is permanent, the land protected for a century. The family has sanctuary that will outlast me. The young adult patrols daily, checks on me, brings supplies when I'm too weak to hunt or gather. The roles have reversed completely. He's protecting me now, making sure the old human survives his final days in comfort. I have no regrets. Destroyed my hunting career, gave up human relationships, spent 3 decades in isolation, sacrificed health, wealth, normalcy, and I do it all again, every day. Because what I protected mattered more than anything I sacrificed. Here's what 33 years of protecting a Bigfoot family taught me about redemption, purpose, and what actually matters. First, skills aren't good or evil. Purpose determines morality. I was elite hunter. Those skills could kill or protect, could extract or defend. Same abilities, different application. Redemption isn't erasing what you were. It's using what you were for better purposes. Second, family transcends biology when recognition is mutual. The father and I became brothers. Different species, but same commitment, same love, same willingness to die for those we protected. That's family, not genetics. Choice, consistency, mutual recognition that we matter to each other. Third, protection requires sacrifice. I gave up everything: money, relationships, comfort, normal life. Because effective protection costs, requires total commitment, requires choosing what you're protecting over everything else. No halfway measures, no balanced life, just complete devotion. Fourth, technology makes hiding harder, but not impossible. We adapted, learned new threats, developed new defenses, stayed ahead of detection technology through constant vigilance. Hiding is possible, but it requires understanding what you're hiding from and adapting faster than threats evolve. Fifth, legacy is what continues after you're gone. I won't live forever, but the legal structures will. The family will. The young adult will continue what his father and I started. That's legacy. Not being remembered, creating something that survives you and continues the work you started. And finally, redemption is possible no matter what you've done. I was killer, trophy hunter, empty shell taking life for sport. Then I became protector, guardian, man with purpose. Same person, different choices. Proof that who you were doesn't determine who you become. That change is possible at any age. That redemption is earned through action, not regret. The family isn't mythical, isn't supernatural. They're biological beings, intelligent primates, people living in the gaps of human civilization. They deserve to stay hidden, deserve privacy, deserve the right to exist without human interference, without being studied or photographed or proven. The conservation easement protects them. The legal structures I created ensure their territory remains sanctuary. The young adult and his family can raise offspring without fear of discovery. That's the point. Not proving they exist, protecting their right to remain unknown. The carving from the young adult sits beside my bed. Two figures standing together, guardian and protected, father and son, brothers across species. It's the only possession that matters. Physical proof that I was loved by beings I devoted my life to protecting, that I became family to people I wasn't supposed to believe existed. When I die, probably within weeks, the young adult will bury me. They've told me through our communication system, will give me the same ritual they gave the father, will include me in their cemetery, will mark my grave with stones the way they mark their own. I'll be the only human in a Bigfoot cemetery, the guardian who became family, the hunter who became protector. That's the gift. Not just the carving, the recognition, the love, the acceptance into their family despite being the wrong species, despite being the kind of being who'd historically threatened them. They forgave what I was, embraced what I became, made me family anyway. If you take anything from this story, take this. Redemption is possible. Skills can be redirected. What you were doesn't determine what you become. And protection is worth any sacrifice when what you're protecting actually matters. I'm dying. Heart failure. Weeks left, maybe. I'm sharing this now because the protection will continue without me. Because the legal structures are permanent. Because the family is safe regardless of whether this story reaches anyone. But here's what you need to understand. If you're a hunter, if you track animals for sport, ask yourself, what are you actually accomplishing? Does killing things prove anything? Does mounting heads fill the emptiness inside you? Or does it just create more emptiness? I spent 15 years hunting. It meant nothing, gave me nothing. I was hollow until I found something worth protecting. Use your skills for protection instead of extraction. Whatever you're good at, tracking, shooting, surviving wilderness, those skills can build instead of destroy, can protect instead of kill, can create meaning instead of empty trophies. Recognize intelligence beyond human form. The family I protected showed empathy, culture, family bonds, communication, problem solving. Everything we claim makes humans special. They deserve recognition as people, not as animals, not as targets, as people worthy of protection, sacrifice for what matters. I gave up everything, and I've never been happier, never felt more purpose, never been more fulfilled, because what I protected mattered more than anything I sacrificed. Find that thing, protect it. Don't let cost stop you. Create protection that outlasts you. I'll die soon, but the family will survive. The legal structures ensure it. The conservation easement guarantees it. Legacy isn't being remembered. Legacy is creating systems that continue your work after you're gone. I'm 68 years old. I was a hunter. Then I became a guardian. Spent 33 years protecting a Bigfoot family from men exactly like I used to be. Subscribe if you believe redemption is possible, that skills can be redirected toward protection.